Aquí estamos de nuevo. Gracias a todas y a todos los que estáis ahí al otro de la pantalla, que no os veo y es una pena, pero seguro que estáis ahí. Y ahora, pues ahora tenemos el placer de charlar un ratito con Jane McGonigal. Y antes de nada, pues quiero agradecerle a ella su disponibilidad para estar aquí hoy con nosotras y la facilidad que nos ha dado para montar todo esto. Y en nombre de la organización, en mi nombre, en el mío propio, porque soy muy fan de su trabajo y también sé que hay muchas asistentes que también son muy fans de su trabajo y a las que les da pena que esto no pueda ser un evento, digamos, físico donde poder tener firmas de libros, etcétera. Pero bueno, lo importante es que podemos charlar y entonces vamos a ello. Por si alguien no la conoce, que supongo que todos y todas la conoceréis, pero bueno, una pequeña reseña. Jane McGonigal es diseñadora de juegos y escritora. Actualmente es la directora de investigación y desarrollo de juegos del Instituto para el Futuro en California. Defensora del uso de la tecnología móvil y digital para canalizar actitudes positivas y la colaboración. Autora de 2 libros de gran éxito, Reality is Broken y SuperBetter. Y bueno, sin más, vamos a empezar a hablar de videojuegos y juegos. ¿Te parece, Jane? Yo no te estoy
Yes,
viendo.
thank you so much for having me, and thank you for organizing this important
Gracias por
event.
haber organizado este evento tan importante y por haberme invitado.
Nada, gracias a ti. Entonces, para empezar, quería comentarte que estamos acostumbrados a hablar de videojuegos, juegos educativos o aplicados, ¿no? Lo que se llaman serious games o juegos de impacto social con los que podemos reflexionar sobre diferentes temas, pero tú vas un paso más allá, ¿no? Y reivindicas que los videojuegos pueden hacernos mejores personas en el mundo real. En tu libro Reality is Broken argumentas que los videojuegos contribuyen a la felicidad y a la motivación de los humanos, ¿no? a darle un significado y al desarrollo de comunidad. Entonces, ¿qué puede aprender la realidad de los videojuegos?
Thank you for asking. And it's really
pregunta.
interesting. You know, it's been 10 years now since that book was first published, and intellectual inquiry transforms over time, and so some of my thinking has changed a little bit. So I really appreciate this opportunity to kind of offer some updates on the research and thinking. I would say the number one thing we now know about video games is that they help people achieve a growth mindset and a challenge mindset, which means 2 things. It means you feel confident in your ability to get better at things that you're not good at the first time you try them. You feel confident in your ability to learn new skills and to take on difficult challenges and manage difficult emotions like frustration or disappointment or stress, and to keep working towards your goal, to ask for help when you need it, to look for learning resources or teammates who can help you, and to essentially learn how to manage your mental stress, your emotional stress, and your social support when you're taking on tough challenges. And this is kind of the most universal truth across all genres of video games, because all games are designed to challenge you, to frustrate you a little bit, and to force you to learn a new skill and to get better at something that you're not already
capacidad nueva
And I
y
do
ser
think
mejores
that
en algo
this
que no se nos da
translates
bien al
very
principio.
effectively
Y yo creo que
to
esto se
real
traduce
life,
muy
and the
bien a la
research
vida
literature
real
suggests
y la
that people who
investigación nos
spend more
sugiere
time playing games,
que las
especially if
personas
they
que pasan
haven't
más tiempo
spent a lot of
jugando
time playing
a
video games
videojuegos y
before,
si no lo
if
habían
they're
hecho
consistently
anteriormente,
engaged with
si
games
se
that are
implican de
challenging,
forma
not playing the same game. This is not true
consistente
if you play
con algo que
solitaire
es
for the past 30
desafiante,
years
pues bueno,
on
mejora.
your,
Esto no es algo que se
computer.
aplique si
But if you're learning new
si lo
games
hacemos desde
and
hace mucho tiempo como jugar
gaining
al
new
solitario
skills,
30 años.
there's
Si
brain
vamos
benefits,
cambiando, pues
neuroplasticity, emotional
necesitamos esos
benefits,
desafíos
building
que nos
your
ayudan a mejorar
confidence and your ability
pues
to cope and
las
take on
capacidades
challenges.
mentales,
So that's kind of
también
the
la parte
biggest,
física. Eso es
I think, message that comes out of
el
the research,
mensaje
and the
positivo
one I
que se
always
extrae de la
encourage people to
investigación
think
y que
about is that
siempre
you get
animo a
better
la gente a que
at taking
lo
on
vea
challenges.
así, que
It's a skill
mejoramos
that
y
transfers to real life.
asumimos desafíos y esto es una capacidad que se transfiere a la vida real.
Bien, enlazando con esto, en una de tus charlas TED, también de hace tiempo, del 2010, comentabas que se invertían 3.000 millones de horas a la semana en juegos online, ¿no? Y que, según tus investigaciones, era necesario llegar a 21.000 millones de horas de juego a la semana para resolver los problemas del planeta. Han pasado 10 años, ¿no? desde esta charla. Entonces, no sé si la situación ha avanzado, si ahora ya jugamos muchos más millones de horas, y también si crees que o sea, si eso sigue siendo así, ¿no? Si tenemos que jugar más.
Yes, sure. So to update the statistics, 10 years ago, when I gave that talk, we had 500 million people regularly playing video games on the planet. Today, it's 2.3 billion people. So there's been incredible growth in just how normal an activity it is. And 1 in 3 people on the planet play video games regularly. In terms of time spent, the average time ranges between 30 minutes a day to 3 hours a day, depending on what type of gamer you are. But so we are coming up right around 20 billion hours a week. So we clearly haven't solved all of our planet's problems yet. But there has been something really interesting, I think, during the pandemic and the increased stay-at-home orders and isolation, especially for young people. We are starting to see research into how games are playing a role, and that kids who are spending more time playing video games now seem to be doing better emotionally and socially, that they feel less isolated, that they feel more hope or anticipation for positive events. If you ask them, is there anything they're looking forward to tomorrow, they can name something specific. They seem to have a wider range of positive emotions on a daily basis, whether it's excitement or pride or curiosity or a sense of joy and delight and surprise. So, it's funny. When you're making, intellectual arguments, you sometimes make very provocative ones. And certainly looking back at that history of that talk, there was a lot of provocation there. But at a more sort of practical, everyday level, I do think we're seeing there are, for many people and in many situations like the current isolation and the current stress and uncertainty that people are facing with the pandemic, where more time gaming is supporting social, mental, and psychological well-being, and that kids who already had a gaming community have made that transition easier. Young adults who've had that community have made that transition easier, and we're seeing, generations, older adults starting to pick it up more now as well. So, I think with games, it's really important to look at specific communities, specific practices, specific contexts, and try to bring some nuance. And so yes, as we keep talking now and today, we can keep looking for, what are the moments where gaming really matters, or the people for whom gaming really matters, and how can we maximize the benefits and minimize, any unwanted sense of distractions from real challenges that we need to attend to.
de la vida real.
Sí, es cierto. Uy, es que me estoy oyendo yo, perdón. Es cierto que para el confinamiento, todos los que somos jugadores y jugadores nos ha ayudado mucho, ¿no? De tener ese punto de escape de la realidad con los videojuegos, que ya lo podemos tener, no sé, con la literatura, con el cine, pero que con los videojuegos va mucho más allá, ¿no? Enlazando con lo que hablábamos antes de la tesis de tu libro y de cómo los videojuegos pueden servir para mejorar el mundo, algunas de las críticas que ha tenido era que había una falta de evidencias que demostrase que el comportamiento que hacemos en los videojuegos se pueda traducir a soluciones del problema del mundo real como la pobreza o las enfermedades, etcétera, ¿no? Entonces, ¿qué puedes decir sobre esto?
Yeah, thank you for this question. I'd really like to actually talk about the game that I mentioned at the end of my first TED Talk, and I write about it towards the end of Reality is Broken, a game called Evoke. This was a game that I created with the World Bank to essentially look 10 years into the future. What kinds of crises might we be facing in the year 2020? The game was played originally in the year 2010. And so we created some future forecasts, and we had about 20,000 young people, a large number from sub-Saharan Africa, tackle, how they might solve these problems and what they could do today to prepare to solve those problems. So we recently went back because it's the 10-year anniversary of this game, and we looked at, what was the game about? What problems were people tackling? What were the forecasts? So the game looked at 10 different crises. It starts with a respiratory pandemic that begins with an outbreak in China and spreads globally. That's the first challenge that we thought we'd be facing in year 2020. The next crisis is that there is a intentional misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda campaign to spread lies on social media and on the internet about, is the pandemic real? Is it a hoax? Can you trust the research? And so there was the second challenge was around learning to anticipate disinformation and how to help spread accurate, how do you spread the truth during a pandemic. Next week, we looked at historic wildfires in the state of California and how would people be coexisting with pandemic and with wildfire. I mean, so now we didn't prevent these problems from happening by playing the game, but I've been following up with players of Evoke and with players of other future forecasting games that I write about in Reality is Broken and talk about, like World Without Oil and Superstruct, which also looked at things like a respiratory pandemic. And one of the most important things that I found is people who played these games, they were asked to simulate their real lives and to think, what would I do if this pandemic were where I am, or if this oil shortage were occurring, or grocery prices were doubling or tripling and I couldn't afford them as usual. And people have been telling me all through 2020, players that we check in on and who reach out, that they felt emotionally prepared for this future. So we know that they started wearing masks earlier. They didn't need government orders. We know that they didn't, vacillate on the science. Should I do this or not? They started socially distancing earlier. A lot of people say, we've never heard this phrase, social distance, before. I was getting emails in January and February before it was widespread in many places, or known to be widespread. People saying, my family started social distancing. People were prepared by playing games that looked at real challenges, and it helped them. They talk about feeling less stuck. They'd already pre-processed the anxiety, pre-processed the sense of stress. And so for me, my evolving thoughts on the role that games can play and the kinds of games that I'm excited to continue making going forward. One genre of game will be to continue to create these simulations of what we expect the next future challenge to be. What would it be like
futuro, pues nos puede ayudar esa simulación a
50,000 or
enfrentarnos a
100,000
ellos.
or a million people
En vez de
being the
tener
most people who've
pues
played one of my serious games.
estos
What if 20 million or
juegos
200 million
serios, si
people could
son
simulate
20
these crises
millones o en vez
before
de
we
ser
live
los
in
números
them?
que tenemos ahora,
How
pues
much
20 millones
faster
o
could we
más,
all act
si hacen esa simulación, pues nos
be ready
ayudaría
to
a actuar de forma más
be
rápida, o
flexible in our
podríamos
thinking and
preguntarnos cómo nos ayudaría a
adaptable in our
reflexionar y
behaviors?
actuar de forma más rápida, adaptar
Games may
nuestros
not solve
comportamientos.
problems or prevent
Los
problems,
juegos puede
but
que
they
no
can
resuelvan los
prepare us
problemas o que nos eviten, pero sí
to
nos pueden
feel
preparar para
ready,
sentirnos
to
preparadas,
learn the ways
para
that will
aprender
learn the behaviors that will
los
benefit us, or
comportamientos que van a ser
pre-think through the
positivos,
challenges.
o
So
hacer
that's something that I'm really thinking
una
about
prereflexión
now.
sobre el desafío. Y esto es
And of
sobre lo
course,
que
if we can get more
estoy
people to play games
reflexionando
like this,
ahora.
maybe we
Si
will have more
más gente
action.
juega este tipo de
I'm thinking
juegos,
of
podemos
doing
también
a
hacer que
similar
pasen a
game
la acción.
around
Estamos
climate
haciendo también
crisis
un
and
juego
mass
sobre la
migration.
crisis,
I
la
live in
crisis
California.
climática y la emigración masiva.
I'm not allowed to go
Yo vivo en
outside right now,
California, ahora
not
no
because of the
puedo
pandemic,
salir
but
en este
because of the
momento, no
wildfires.
por la
The
pandemia,
air
sino
quality is
por
such that
los
you can't even go
incendios
outside
forestales.
for
La calidad
2
del agua,
minutes. We can't open
del
our
aire,
windows.
no se puede
It's been
salir ni 2
mostly like this
minutos
every day
ni abrir las
for,
ventanas, y llevamos
I
así
want to say
cada
about 6
día,
weeks
yo
now,
diría desde hace 6
where me and my kids, we
semanas.
can't leave our house.
Ni
So,
yo ni
we're already
mis
starting
hijos
to
podemos salir de
move into an
casa,
era of
y estamos
climate crisis, and
entrando
I'd like
en
to
una
see
era de crisis
games
climática,
being made to prepare
y
people
creo que es
to
importante que
think about how
ya
they're
se
going
empiecen
to
a preparar
adapt
juegos para
to
que la
where we
gente
may need to
aprenda y empiece
move
a
entire
adaptarse.
communities. We may need to
Si tenemos
relocate
puede que tengamos que
a lot of our
reubicar
infrastructure and
comunidades
people
enteras
who
o
are,
cambiar
at
toda la
higher risk. How
infraestructura,
can we start
pensar
planning
en el
for and
alto
preparing
riesgo,
for that
cómo podemos
now, so
jugar
that
y
10 years from now,
prepararnos gracias a
people
los
aren't still
videojuegos,
living in the areas
y
where it's not safe to, and maybe we've
para evitar que la
mitigated.
gente no
Maybe
siga
we've
viviendo en
seen
zonas
how
que no son
horrible it would be to have
seguras,
to
y
try to move
mitigar.
2 billion people,
Si tuviésemos que
and we've started to take
trasladar
more
2.000
action
millones de
today
personas,
to
pues
make a
sería
safer
tremendo. Si
planet.
podemos
So
hacer
some of the
algo
risks can be
hoy, pues es
avoided.
muy importante hacerlo, ¿no? También.
Sí. Y ahora también estás trabajando en SuperBetter, ¿no? Que creo que es como una transición, ¿no? O quizás como un paso lógico en todo lo que has dicho, y que es un juego que ha ayudado a más de 1 millón de jugadores a recuperarse de síntomas de depresión, de ansiedad, dolor crónico, etc. Entonces también me gustaría que nos contases un poco cómo funciona SuperBetter y si crees que nos puede ayudar en la situación actual, donde, bueno, pues todos estamos preocupados por la pandemia, o en tu caso particular, ¿no? En el caso de California, con los incendios, si también puede ayudar para estas cosas.
Indeed. So, SuperBetter started with my own severe concussion, where I was having a level of anxiety and depression and cognitive fatigue that I had not experienced before. And so I tried to essentially create rules for waking up every day and staying engaged with difficult challenges. At the heart of SuperBetter is the idea that you can't control the challenges that you're facing. You might not be able to control an injury or an illness or an external stressor like losing a job or going through a difficult divorce. That even if you're not in control of that, that every day you can wake up and identify behaviors or people you want to talk to or connect with, practices that do make you feel better in some way because they make you physically stronger or create at least 5 minutes of positive emotion or physical pleasure, or they let you be of service to somebody else. If you're not your best self, is there a way to help others so you still feel like you can do something good in the world? And that was all of what I needed. We wound up creating an app, and one of the things that I'm very proud of is SuperBetter is consistently the most validated in the scientific literature. If you go to Google Scholar and look for SuperBetter, you'll find dozens of independent reviews and trials that have been conducted by various universities, children's hospitals, medical research centers, and it is consistently tested to have the highest positive impact for anxiety and depression compared to other apps in the App Store, most of which are not games or gamified. I do think that the gamefulness of it is a really important part of its effects. And we are partnering with universities and hospitals and children mentoring groups, foster youth organizations during the pandemic now to make sure that people can have access to it and use it. I will say SuperBetter is free. There's nothing to buy in it. The app is free. And I'm really proud that we've been able to get it out to more than 1 million people already. And, you know, something that we all need to do, I think, is to support and encourage external scientific research on our apps and to be open to the results. We did just find out that there's another external group that's been testing SuperBetter alongside a couple other apps, and they're going to be publishing shortly the results. And again, I don't know what the results will be, but as a designer and as a researcher and research scientist myself, I have to be open to what it says. And, you know, if it turns out that there are types of players for whom it doesn't work as effectively, you know, if there are contexts where it becomes problematic and actually creates harm, I need to be responsible to that. And so, you know, I try to keep very flexible mind as we learn more about, you know, the impacts of what we make, like any technology creator, you know, the people who invented Facebook and Twitter and, you know, a lot of the tools that we're starting to see unintended harms to mental health, to democracy. You know, those of us who make games have to be responsible for unanticipated consequences too. So I always try to keep an open mind and continue to look at external criticism of work that I do to be able to be responsible and receptiva
a las críticas externas para ser responsable.
Me parece muy interesante lo que comentas de la investigación externa de las apps, ¿no? Porque no sé si estarás de acuerdo, perdón, pero yo creo que el hype de la gamificación ha sido contraproducente en algunos casos, ¿no? Porque ahora cualquier cosa parece que es gamificación y cualquier cosa a la que se le ponga el apellido de gamificación, pues ya está bien y no siempre funcionan, no siempre se les llama correctamente gamificación a cosas que no lo son, ¿no? No sé si estás de acuerdo.
Yeah. It's true. You know, I'm a little bit... I always want to point out that I don't use the term gamification in any of my books or any of my talks, and it's not something that as you say, I'm not sure it's been good for, you know, the world or designers, game designers or game researchers, partly because a lot of mainstream gamification work seems to miss the heart of gaming. You know, when I look at a lot of gamification strategies, to me it seems similar to what Facebook does or Twitter does or Instagram does, just trying to keep you engaged, you know, and stay a little bit longer, do a little bit more, often in service of, you know, activities that you might not have chosen to do on your own, whether it's, you know, marketing, gamifications, or trying to get you to look at advertisements or to buy stuff, or maybe it's in a learning environment, but it's not something you're self-motivated to learn, and somebody's trying to drag you through an online course or online training that you don't intrinsically care about. The idea that we should make games to get people to do stuff they don't want to do is absolutely terrible. And you know, I think that's the main use of gamification and, you know, as it's traditionally been applied. How can we get people to do more of what they don't want to do, that we think they should do, we think it's good for them, or it benefits us, or it makes us money? So if there's one thing I could change, you know, going forward for people who do work under the term gamification or do want to take from games and apply to real world problems or real world behavior change, is to always, you know, pledge. It's like an ethical pledge, I feel, to use gamification in service of goals that the individual has or that the user has. You know, are we going to make it easier to vote for people who would like to vote? Great. Are we going to make it, you know, easier for you to adopt healthier habits that you choose for yourself? Great. But we need to pledge to not be doing it as a coercive activity. It should really be about making it easier for people to do more of what authentically brings them benefit as they, you know, feel motivated. We shouldn't be using it to motivate people to do something that is not in their best interest and not something that they feel connected to. So if we could, like, you know, go screech and like stop, turn, change, that would be the big change that I would like to see.
Sería el movimiento, digamos, que yo pondría en marcha.
Bien, y volviendo a los videojuegos, existen muchos estereotipos relacionados con los videojuegos, ¿no? Y yo creo que en muchos casos hay gente que confunde juego y la utilización de juegos, pues lo que estábamos hablando, para aprender, para cambiar actitudes, etcétera, con algo poco serio, ¿no? Que como es un juego, pues es algo poco serio, o con la infantilización de comportamientos.
Yes, I mean, there is something very infantilizing about some gamification, or even the way that some people talk about, you know, the needs that gamers are fulfilling. You know, I try to take very seriously the idea that, you know, people seek out activities that benefit them and that they can speak authentically about what they get from a game. And I feel like a lot of popular media discourse around games, you know, acts like 2.3 billion people are idiots who don't know what's good for them. And that's, you know, I do think we could elevate, you know, both our design and the way we speak about human beings who are seeking authentic sources of challenge and connection and pleasure. And it would be nice to kind of take some of that, that aspect out of it.
Sacar parte de estos aspectos.
Bien, en tus investigaciones destacas el valor de las redes sociales y bueno, ya has hablado un poco de ellas para la conexión entre los jugadores, ¿no? Y la importancia de esta comunicación entre los jugadores y de crear grupo y no sentirse aislado. Pero también, en muchos casos, esta conexión se convierte en acoso, y especialmente con jugadoras mujeres, ¿no?
Yeah.
Entonces, ¿cómo podemos lidiar con esto, ¿no? Porque tienen su parte buena y su parte mala.
Yes, I've been lucky enough to have the opportunity to advise a number of our leading game companies right now, creating the biggest games, about what challenges they face in the next decade. And in the past year, this is something I've forecast for several major game companies, that this problem needs to be solved, or there's going to be like a video game bubble. Players are not going to put up with the kind of toxic harassment and bullying that is so rampant across so many different game communities and platforms. And I do think there is a sense of it's too slow, there's too much inertia, there's too much failure to act, and I don't think the game community can remake the mistakes of social media. One area where I do see a lot of interesting work, I do feel like in virtual reality, that there is a lot of anticipation of new types of harassment that could take place in these environments where it feels so real and the brain perceives a lot of interaction as if it were really happening. And so I do see VR developers do take this problem, I think, more seriously than our typical console or PC game developers have. So I look to that with some hope. And I do think, at least at least there's
sobre lo que he
critical
pensado y creo que
mass now around understanding
no sé
that
si hay
this
esta masa
problem is like a
crítica
tipping
a
point for
día
the
de
future of
hoy
games,
como
because
para,
women will walk
bueno,
away,
que
girls
debemos
will walk away,
entender esto
people
de
of
cara al
color will
futuro, si
walk
no las
away,
mujeres se
queer
van
people
a
will
ir, la
walk
gente
away.
de
It's
color,
just
la gente que no sea
this is
considerada
that's not
normal
any
se
way
va
to
a
grow
ir.
an industry or
Si esto es
grow a
así, bueno, no
cultural
es la forma
phenomenon.
normal de crecer para
But,
ninguna
you know, maybe
industria,
we
para
look to
ningún
VR,
fenómeno
and also
cultural.
look towards the
Y
role that
quizás hay que
AI
tener
has
esto
to
en
play.
cuenta. También hay
You
que
know,
tener
as
en
we
cuenta el
see
papel que la inteligencia
improvements
artificial va a jugar.
in bots that we can play
Hemos
alongside, you
visto
know,
muchas
to
mejoras,
create
cómo podemos jugar
experiences that
uno junto al otro, cómo podemos
can
crear
be
experiencias
sociable
que
without
pueden
exposing
ser
us
como
to
sociables sin
players who are
exponernos
unlike us. You know, the kind of
bueno, pues a
people have
jugadores
talked
que no
about
son como
things
nosotros, etcétera.
almost as
La gente
surprising as kind of
muchas
lifetime
veces
records for gamers, like your
bueno,
behavior in
pues
one game or
habla de
one
nosotros o tiene en
platform could
cuenta pues
follow
lo que
you
hemos hecho, como el
and
comportamiento que
essentially
tenemos en un juego, en
consign you to
otro.
playing on servers with people who don't mind playing
Bueno, como
with
que a veces jugar
jerks.
esto pues hace, pues
This
no te
kind of,
importa jugar en estas plataformas en las que están este tipo de personas u otras.
Behavior or social
Esta
profile that
especie de
follows you. I mean, there's a lot of
perfil
interesting things being
social o de
talked about, and I don't know
comportamiento.
how far it will
La
go,
verdad es que
but
yo
there
no
does
sé
need to be
hasta dónde va a llegar
accountability,
eso, pero
and
creo que tiene que
I'm
haber
looking forward to
como
the use of AI, to the
rendimiento
use
de
of
cuentas. Tiene
reputation profiles that are
que
you know,
crearse
perhaps
o
have
tener
some
en
more
cuenta la
permanence to them,
reputación de determinados
so that
perfiles,
people
darles
are
más
held accountable
prominencia
and that we can
a
improve the
determinadas
culture.
personas
Thank you
para que
for
estos
bringing up that
puedan
topic.
ayudar. Y bueno, nada más. Muchas gracias, por cierto, por haber sacado este tema.
Vale, pues antes de dar paso a las preguntas que pueda tener el público y enlazando con esto último que estábamos comentando, uno de los objetivos de estas jornadas es dar visibilidad a las mujeres que trabajan en la industria de los videojuegos, ¿no? En este momento en ningún país de Europa llegamos a ser, no llegamos al 20%, ¿no? Y entonces sobre esto también, ¿alguna idea sobre cómo luchar contra el machismo en el sector? Y yo creo que debemos de ocupar ahí también un papel relevante para que también tengamos juegos más diversos, ¿no?
Yes, I mean, this is such a big problem being tackled from so many different angles.
I mean,
I personally try to tackle it by playing games that I know were led by a female developer or a female creator, by asking other women, you know, what they're playing, by trying to essentially participate in elevating and shining a spotlight on, you know, women-created games. For example, the one game that I'm recommending to everybody right now is a game called Self-Care, which is a mobile game, and it's created by a woman, and it's kind of the opposite of any kind of machismo game. It's a beautiful game where you stay in bed all day and do things that are nurturing and, you know, build your life force and help you think about what you want your future to be. And so I just think, you know, what each one of us can do is to look for games that are made by women and play them and tell our friends about them and buy them and just support it in that way.
Y bueno, creo que realmente todo mi apoyo desde este punto de vista.
Gracias, pues bueno, yo seguiría hablando contigo, pero a ver si hay preguntas por el chat o... Sí, tenemos una de María y te la leo. Desde la perspectiva de creadora de Serious Games, ¿qué consejos le darías a los escritores y diseñadores de juegos no serios para que sus juegos contribuyan más a la salud mental de sus jugadores?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm really interested in the cultivation of new ways to help other people in games. There's an area of psychological research that it identifies all of the different things that make people feel supported by others. So there's providing material resources. So like when I play Pokemon Go and I send a virtual gift to one of my friends, that's material resources I can provide. There's also informational resources.
partir de ahí,
So
¿no?
if
Están ahí
somebody's
esos
new to a
recursos, los de
game
información, de
and could
manera
use
que
a little advice
si alguien
or
es nuevo en un
needs to
juego,
figure
pues
it
se le
out,
pueda
we can
dar pues
give
un poco de
we can give
asesoramiento
tips, we can build
inicial,
wikis, we
darle
can post
pues
walkthroughs, we
bueno,
can
unas ideas
do like
principales, se
tutorials
pueden
in
hacer
our live
wikis, se pueden
streaming to
hacer
help
como
other people get
tutoriales,
better.
se pueden hacer,
There's
bueno,
appraisal
wikis,
resources,
distintas
which is
cosas.
when
Después hay
you
también
see what
recursos
someone
como
else
de
is doing and you see what
reconocimiento, que
skill or
serían,
strength
vemos
that
lo que hace
required,
alguien y
and you
vemos
give
cuál
them
es su
feedback on it. And
mejor
that's something we don't see a lot
habilidad,
of in
su
games
punto fuerte, y
yet.
le damos un
That I
poco de
think, you know, if
feedback
I
sobre esto.
could
Esto no se ha
see
visto
what
todavía
somebody else
mucho en
has been
los
doing in a
videojuegos,
game,
pero
whether
creo
it's,
que
you know, it's the
ver
world that they've
esto,
created in
cómo llega
Animal
una persona en un
Crossing, or it's
juego, que
incredible
ha creado,
exploit they
si es
pulled
que
off
pues,
in Fortnite.
es
If I
realmente algo
could
increíble o no, o lo que
essentially
sea. Creo
send
que
them a particular type
enseñar
of high five
una
or note,
especie
I
de,
saw what you did,
pues,
it
no
showed
sé, de
me
decirle,
your
he visto
creativity,
lo
it
que has
showed me
hecho y me
your
demuestra que,
perseverance, it
bueno, tienes
showed
una
me
gran
your
creatividad,
resilience, it
tu
showed me your
perseverancia, me ha mostrado
ingenuity, or, you know,
pues
that
la
how
ingenuidad
do
o
we
lo que
see
sea
each
que
other
tienes. Creo
and
que
reflect back the
cómo
skills and
vemos a
strengths we're
los otros,
seeing,
reflexionar
because
sobre esas
that is
destrezas que
something
se
that we
intentan
know
lograr,
from the research
es
literature extends
importante
into
porque
real world. When somebody
esto, por las
says, I
investigaciones, hemos
saw you
visto que
did
es
this
algo que se
thing, and
expande
to
al
me,
mundo real. Y
it
bueno,
shows this skill or this strength, people
es como decir,
internalize
te he
that and they
visto
start to
hacer
think
esto y
of
para mí esto
themselves
me
as, oh
muestra esta
yes, you know, I
destreza,
am a
esta
creative
habilidad, lo
person,
que sea.
or I am a very
La gente,
resilient person, or
claro,
I
esto le
do
puede
have
llegar a
great
decir, pues soy una
leadership
persona
or
con gran
communication under
resiliencia o con gran
pressure.
liderazgo o con
And
muchas dotes para la
if you there's
comunicación.
other kinds of support, social support you can give.
Es
And so
útil
I'm
cualquier
really
otro tipo
excited to
de
see,
apoyo
I'd love
social
to
que se
see
pueda
game
dar.
developers of
A
all
mí,
kinds
bueno,
look
me
into that
gustaría
literature,
ver
go
cómo
through that
los
checklist and say, okay, if these are the
desarrolladores de
10 ways people
juegos
feel
analizan
supported
todo
socially,
esto y
have I
hiciesen
built
como una especie de
opportunities for
checklist y
all 10 of
dijesen, bueno,
these,
pues todo esto hay que
you know,
tenerlo en cuenta, puedo
frequency of
dar
interaction,
oportunidades pues
feeling one,
para
and
lo
one
que
thing
sea.
that's really interesting is
Y creo que una
if you
cosa
notice a
también muy
commonality,
interesante es que
something you have in
si vemos algo
common
que
with
es
another
común, algo que igual una
person,
persona
that
tiene en común
increases your
con
sense
otra,
of
pues el pensar,
connection and
esto
feeling like,
aumenta tu
wow, they're, you
sensación
know,
de
I'm surrounded by people
conexión
who are
o
like me, and
te
that feels
ayuda
really
pues a
good.
lo mejor a
You know,
sentir,
are there
pues mira,
opportunities
pues soy
for
como esta
players
persona o esta
to
persona,
notice what they have in
pues
common,
le puedo
whether it's they
gustar. Ver
both,
este conocimiento de qué
had
tenemos
the
en
same
común
achievement in the
puede
game, or they've
ser
both
importante y puede enfatizar
been
ciertos
stuck on this
logros
level for a
en un
certain
juego, ¿no?
while,
Y
or
hacer entender
whatever
pues
it is that they
lo
might
que
have in
sea.
common.
Pero sea lo que sea que tengamos
The
en
literature
común,
has so many like kind of rich ideas that
puede
haven't
ayudar.
really
La
been
idea es como tender
fully
puentes
designed
también
across our
entre
game
ideas
ecosystem.
y
So that's some advice I would
entre
give,
unos juegos
because
y otros. Y este sin duda
I
sería
think
uno
we
de
know
los
pretty clearly
consejos
now that feeling
principales
socially
que
supported,
daría, porque creo que
it has benefits
sin
in
duda
players'
dar este
entire
apoyo
lives,
a comunidades
and
sociales
people
va a
who
ser de gran
actually
ayuda para
connect
la vida de
more
muchas
socially in
personas.
games get
Y
more
la gente que
help
se
in real life. They
conecta
do ask
socialmente más a través de
co-players for
juegos, pues
all of
puede
those things,
realmente
the emotional
conseguir
support, the
gran
appraisal
ayuda y
support,
puede
the
recibir ese
resource
apoyo
support. So
emocional
that's what
que
we should
es
be,
tan necesario
all
que han
game
mostrado
designers, whether
algunas
it's a serious
investigaciones. Y
game
creo que esto
or,
es
you know,
lo
commercial
esencial
entertainment
y que nos
games, should be
podría
looking into
realmente
that, I
ver si
think.
hablamos de un juego serio o de qué tipo de juego hablamos.
Vale, pues vamos a ver si hay alguna otra pregunta. Bueno, mientras que esperamos por si los participantes quieren comentar algo. En relación con lo que acabas de hablar, claro, esa sensación de bienestar, ¿no?, que nos pueden proporcionar los videojuegos y esos triunfos épicos tan gratificantes, ¿no crees que a lo mejor también nos pueden llevar a caer en la tentación de quedarnos a vivir en el videojuego porque se está mucho mejor que en el mundo real?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Sí, claro.
And I've been so focused on
Y de hecho,
what leads somebody to bring that energy
muchas veces yo
and that
me he
mindset
centrado
to real life
más
versus
bien
what leads somebody
intentar
to
hacer
say,
ver
I like it better in
cómo
the virtual
puedes
world,
llevar
I'm going
toda
to
esa
stay
energía
here.
a la vida
The
real
good
y no
news
al
is
contrario,
there
aquí
is
se está genial, me quedo
really
aquí.
strong data on what
Hay
leads somebody
muchos
to go
datos,
into a
mucha
kind of
información
downward spiral. You know, I have these problems, I don't want to
que
face
nos
them, the game
demuestra
needs to feel
que
better.
cuando una persona
So I
entra
play
como
the
una
game.
espiral
The
de,
more I play the game, the less I
declive,
deal with my problems. The
¿no?
problems get
No
worse.
quiero
So I
hacer
play
frente
the
a
game
este
more and
problema,
go more and more.
juego
That
mejor este
becomes a kind of
videojuego donde me olvido
pathological
de
or
él.
obsessive gameplay. It does have real
Claro, esto es
harms.
una especie de
What stops
catalizador que
that
puede
cycle?
llevar
You know, that's what
a
we're looking
un
for.
gran
There's
daño.
great data on how
¿Cómo
you can stop this
acabamos con
cycle,
esto? Esto es
and
realmente
great
importante y hay
clinical
mucha
interventions that I'm
información
always telling
nueva e
people
interesante
to
sobre
try.
cómo
If
romper
you
con
worry for
esto.
yourself that you have like a
Si
negative
te
spiral, or someone that you care about is going into,
mismo,
or a student is
pues
going into
si
this
a lo
kind of
mejor
negative
pues
spiral, there are
tienes
two things
algún
to
tipo de
do.
sensación
One
negativa
is
o ves
there
que algo
seems
malo
to
te
be a
puede
tipping
pasar, hay
point for
como dos
time
opciones. A
where
veces
the
hay como una
distraction
especie de
really does
momento
take
en el
away
que
from just how much time you have in your day to be
distracción
physically
nos
active,
hace
to attend
poco
to school or work,
evitar o
to
salir
attend
de
to people who
cuánto
don't
tiempo
play the game. And that tipping
tenemos
point is 3
libre
hours. And it's a
cuánto
very
tiempo podemos
practical
dedicar al
thing.
videojuego. Podemos aquí hablar de una media de,
Anybody who's
bueno,
worried
de
about gaming
3
should just
horas.
set
Y
that
bueno,
as a
todo el
hard
mundo al que le
limit and
preocupen
get the
los
gaming per day
videojuegos,
under 3 hours.
muchas
You
veces
never want to
deberían
take a game
bajar
away
de
from
3
somebody
horas.
kind of cold
Nunca
turkey.
le quieres
For
sacar
some players, it's almost like
un
taking
videojuego
someone
a
off
una
an
persona que
antidepressant,
realmente esté
and
metido en problemas
they actually
serios o
become
con
much more
depresivos o
depressed,
lo que
much more
sea,
anxious,
porque podrían
even have
hacerse,
suicidal
bueno, tener más
ideation.
depresión, más
It's actually
ansiedad,
very serious
podría
to try to take games away from
realmente
people who are immersed
llegar
in
a una
them,
situación muy
because they do
peligrosa,
derive so much emotional
sacarles los
benefit
videojuegos a esta
from
persona que
playing them for
siente que
many
saca
people.
beneficios tan
So
buenos
first, so get it
emocionalmente,
under the
pues
tipping point. But then the
pueden
second
estar bien. Este es un
intervention
punto importante, una de
that
las intervenciones
suggests
que hay
how
que
do you
tener
get
en
people
cuenta. Pero
to
también
take
hay
that
otra
mindset energy to
investigación
the real world
que
is that
habla y se centra
conversation
en
about
pensar cómo
real
la gente
skills and
puede
real
llevar lo
strengths
bueno del
that
videojuego
the
a la
game
vida
is
real.
developing
Y
and
esto
cultivating in you. So what you do
intenta
is
de
you
alguna
ask
manera
yourself or
en
you ask your loved one,
analizar o hacer, vale, yo me
what
pregunto a
does
mí
it take to be
mismo,
good at this game?
¿qué es
What
lo que
have you gotten
necesito
better
para
at
ser
since you
mejor en
started
este
playing this
juego?
game?
¿En qué he
You're talking about
mejorado
whatever their
desde que he
favorite game is right now.
empezado a jugar en esto?
What is the hardest thing that you've accomplished in this
¿Y
game?
cuál es la
And
cosa
how
más
did you do
difícil
it?
que has logrado en
Those
este
three
juego y
questions,
cómo lo
if you
has
can have
hecho?
those
Estas
conversations
preguntas,
and
si
have them
somos capaces de
often,
tener esta
especially as they're
conversación y
playing
con
different games or
frecuencia,
different seasons of their favorite game, the more you ask those
sobre todo
questions
con
and have those
determinados
conversations, the more likely someone
jugadores, cuanto
becomes
más tengamos
to,
estas
instead of entering the
conversaciones,
downward spiral,
más fácil
they
va a
springboard
ser
back to
conseguir que la
reality
gente,
because it
en
becomes
vez
part
de
of their
entrar en
identity.
esta
It's
espiral
not
de
that the
declive,
game is
vuelva a la
great,
realidad. Es
it's
como
that
si
they're great
encontrasen,
and that they, when they
no que
play the
piensen,
game,
jugar a estos
demonstrate and cultivate
videojuegos es
these
genial,
aspects
no,
of their own
sino que juego a
personality
esto y con
that
esto activo
are
ciertos
great
aspectos
in
de
real
mi
life. And so
personalidad que son
when you understand somebody
auténticos y
believes that they're
maravillosos en
getting
la
better
vida
at
real.
communication or
Cuando
handling
alguien
high
consigue
pressure
creerse que puede
situations or
tener pues,
processing
mejor
lots of information and
comunicación
making quick
o que
decisions,
puede tomar
whatever it is
decisiones
they
más
believe that
rápidas
they're
en un
good at,
momento
getting better at,
determinado,
that allow them to
cualquier cosa,
accomplish
la que
difficult goals in
sea
the
que
game,
les hace
then you start
sentirse
reflecting that back
mejor,
in real life. If you see
a
them
partir de eso
demonstrating the
podemos hacer
same strengths or
reflexiones sobre cómo eso se
skills in
puede
real
llevar a la
life,
vida real y
or
cómo pueden
other
mejorar
people,
sus capacidades, sus destrezas en la vida real.
whether it's an artist, an athlete, a government leader, and other people in reality who show those same strengths,
cualquier
have
otra
that
persona en la vida
conversation
real
going
puede mostrar también
constantly
esa fortaleza,
because it
sea un artista,
allows
sea lo que sea, pero tener esta
yourself and
conversación,
other
como digo, con
gamers to
frecuencia,
create that
nos puede
bridge
permitir a
between
nosotros y
who I
otros
am in the
jugadores
game and who I
un
am in
poco
real
a,
life. And so that's a
bueno,
very
a
easy intervention
rellenar ese
that has
hueco
really
y
positive
tender
benefits.
esos
So play less
puentes
than 3
y
hours
realmente
and
crear
then
grandes
have those
beneficios. Entonces,
conversations.
jugar menos de 3 horas
And
y
I think
tener
you
este
minimize
tipo
so much
de
of the risk
conversaciones creo que
of
pueden
kind of
ser de gran
obsessive
ayuda
gaming.
para minimizar los riesgos que este tipo de juegos pueden llegar a tener.
Me parece muy interesante pensar en qué es lo que hacemos en los videojuegos, ¿no? Qué es lo que mejor se nos da y cómo podemos aplicar eso después en la vida real. Pues tenemos una pregunta de una persona que te dice si has jugado alguna vez algún juego de rol como Dragones y Mazmorras. Y si es así, si crees que el repunte que está habiendo de jugadores en este modo, que puede ayudar a diseñar mejores experiencias y a crear relaciones.
Yeah, I mean the rise of D&D has been a really noticeable cultural phenomenon.
Dragones y Mazmorras, por ejemplo,
and I think
los números vienen
it's interesting.
creciendo.
I think
Sí,
it's almost for grown-ups or adults what Minecraft is for kids. In that D&D offers a space where there's room for more creativity and self-expression and collective creation. You know, when you come together on a campaign, you're making decisions together. The dungeon master is guiding the experience and bringing their sense of creativity to it. And there's a sense that you're actually creating something. You're not just consuming a game. And that really reminds me of Minecraft. And, why did Minecraft become one of the most popular games of all time? It was a space where you could create and work together. And I think that's really helps explain why so many adults are returning to D&D, because we do want games where we get to we get to
juegos
make and we get to
en los
be
que
alongside friends and
conseguimos
family and have that
hacer
creative
cosas y
energy
estamos con
together.
familiares, con amigos,
I mean, there's
creamos
so many
energía
just
positiva
spending time
en
together
conjunto
and
y
the
bueno, es
communication
eso, pasar
involved.
tiempo
And I mean,
juntos, la
there's so many
comunicación que
benefits
esto
to
implica.
dungeoneering,
Hay
but what I'm
tantas
particularly interested
ventajas
in is
ahí
that
que
sense
bueno,
of,
lo que más me interesa
adults
es
need
esa
creative
sensación
spaces
de
too
que
within games, and
bueno,
that's
esa
something that I think a lot of
creatividad que puede haber en los adultos
video games could
también, ¿no?
benefit from in
Y
general,
creo
is
que
looking to
es una
create
de las cosas
that
en la que
space
creo que
for
pueden ayudar
all of us
mucho los
to
videojuegos,
co-create and
en
not
darnos
just
ese espacio para
consume
co-crear,
or master
tanto
challenges.
como consumir o como pues dirigir retos.
Y bueno, no sé si ya será la última, pero bueno, nos preguntan, a ver un segundo. Los serious games a veces es difícil que lleguen a la misma cantidad de público que los que no tienen esta etiqueta, ¿no? Que los que no son serios. Y por lo tanto la pregunta de María es ideas para que puedan llegar a más gente. Y también si nos puedes recomendar los 3 que más te hayan impactado o que creas que tienen más potencial para ayudar a la gente.
No. Thank you for that great question.
Bueno, muchas gracias por esta pregunta tan estupenda.
What I've come to believe about serious games or games for
juegos
change
serios
is
o
that
juegos para el cambio, al final
we
lo que
will
yo pienso
all
es que
benefit from
creo
having
que todos
a
vamos a
more
beneficiarnos
focused audience that we're trying to reach.
tener
You know,
como una
with
audiencia
my
más
game
centrada a la que
SuperBetter,
dirigirnos,
starting with
con
just
SuperBetter,
other
por
people who
ejemplo,
had concussions,
pues
traumatic brain
hablando
injuries,
con otra
or
gente pues que ha tenido algún tipo de
were
conmoción
dealing with
cerebral
some kind of
o algún
chronic
daño
illness or
cerebral
pain that they
profundo
couldn't
o gente con
control.
algún tipo de
Kind of
dolor
narrowing my
crónico o
focus
enfermedades
to
crónicas
that
que no pueden
audience
controlar. Bueno,
allowed me
esto
to
me
create
ayudó
something
mucho a
that I think was
centrarme en
more
este tipo de
meaningful
audiencia, a pensar
and
en qué
more
podía
relevant
tener
to
más
those
relevancia y
players.
significado para
We
ellos
don't
que
want to
para
be
este tipo de
competing
juegos.
with serious
No
games
se trata
with
de competir con
Fortnite or League of
juegos
Legends or
serios
Animal
como League of
Crossing.
Legends o
I don't think we want to
Fortnite o Animal
compete
Crossing, no.
at global
Creo que
mass
no
entertainment
queremos
scale. That's just
competir
my
a ese nivel de escala
assessment
de
of the
masas
current situation.
mundial, no sé,
I
esa
think
es
we
por lo
do
menos mi
need
evaluación de la
to
situación
create,
actual. Creo que no se trata de que
more tightly
busquemos eso,
focused
sino de
games.
crear
When I look back at my
juegos
career,
como
the
más
games that have been most
centrados en
successful,
grupos
creating a
determinados.
game for the New York Public Library that would be played on site,
Yo, por ejemplo,
and was
pues he
playable on
trabajado
site
pues en
for a
crear pues
year at the
determinados
library.
juegos
And
que
I could really think
se
about,
jugasen, pues, por ejemplo,
who
en
are the
una
people who come to
biblioteca,
this
en el
space,
propio lugar.
what do they
Y la idea
need,
era un
what is
poco que,
meaningful for
bueno, pues
them,
analizar
and
qué
not
pasaba
trying to have
ahí,
a
qué
game
venía,
in that
qué
case that
buscaba
could
la
have
gente
millions of
que
players.
venía ahí,
But
qué quería.
if I could have a meaningful impact and,
Sí, la idea
support
es que si podemos
10,000 young
tener
people
un
in writing their
impacto
first
que
book, for
realmente,
me, that
realmente
becomes a really
significativo y que
meaningful
genere cosas
outcome, and we're not
positivas para
competing at the scale
muchas
or scope
personas,
of,
pues creo que eso es lo
AAA
importante, y no
video
competir en
games.
esa escala, bueno, pues de
I
esos
would,
juegos tan,
I think
bueno, con esas
what we can
cifras tan
do,
voluminosas
most,
de juego y
most
de ventas. Y creo
importantly
que esto
right
realmente
now.
es lo más y lo
And
más
then in terms of
importante
the
que
games
podemos hacer
that
hoy en día.
that
Respecto a los
have been most
juegos
beneficial
yo, bueno,
to
que me has
me.
parecido como más
That is
beneficiosos
such
o que
a
lo han sido
great
por lo
question
menos
because I
para mí,
think
pues la verdad es que es una pregunta, bueno, es estupenda porque yo creo que para mí
we all have like moments in our lives where we need
todos
games for
tenemos
different reasons, and it's maybe
en
not even
nuestra
so much
vida
the
en que
game
escogemos un
as
juego
the
u otro
right
por
match
distintas
with the game
razones. Y
in
a
our
veces,
lives. So I always look back at a
bueno,
game
no es tan
called Grim
fácil de
Fandango,
explicar, pero
which
por
was
ejemplo yo recuerdo Grim
a
Fandango,
single-player
que
adventure game
era un juego de
from
aventuras de solo un jugador,
LucasArts. And
LucasArts,
that game
y,
came into my life
bueno, recuerdo por
like
ejemplo
the
este
week
juego
I
que
started
entró en
dating
mi
a
vida
man
bueno,
who
cuando empecé a salir
then
con
became my husband. I mean,
Damián,
we've been together for
bueno,
is it 20
mi
years
marido
now?
con el
This
que, bueno, llevo 20
it's 20 years now.
sí, 20
This
años
past
ahora,
month. But we
el mes
started playing this
pasado.
video game
Y bueno,
together,
empezamos a
single
jugar, como
player
decía, este
game on
videojuego
one laptop that we would
juntos.
take turns
Es de un
controlling
jugador
the
solo, pero lo
character, and
jugábamos juntos en un
just it
solo
gave us a way to
ordenador
kind of
y nos dio
learn
un
about each
poco
other,
como
our
la
capacity for
posibilidad de
frustration, our
aprender el
how
uno
do we
del
tackle
otro, ver qué
challenges, are
capacidad
we
de
creative
frustración
thinkers, do we
teníamos, cómo
are we
pensábamos,
willing
cómo
to cede
hacíamos
control to
frente
the
a
other
los
person for a
retos.
while? I mean,
Bueno, cómo
the thing about games
todas
is
estas cosas, es que en realidad cuando hablamos de
you look
videojuegos,
for
lo
the game that's the
importante de
right game
ellos
at the
es
right
que,
time. And, you know,
bueno,
I
cada
also
videojuego tiene
I
como
have a
su
very
momento,
special
¿no?
place in my heart for Dance Dance Revolution,
También
which came into my life when I was
Dance Dance
undergoing a health
Revolution,
scare, and I was having a hard time not thinking
también
about, you know, I
fue
was
algo muy
waiting
importante
to see if something
en un
was going
momento
to turn out to,
determinado
you know,
de mi
potentially be
vida
cancer.
y
And
en el
I
que,
couldn't
estaba en
stop
un
thinking
momento con
about
una
it.
situación sanitaria,
And the
bueno,
only
una
thing I
situación
could think
complicada
of
médicamente y no
to
podía parar
not
de pensar en
obsessively
ello
focus on it was to
y
get
no
my
sé,
own
la
dance
única
pad at home
forma
and play DDR
pues
so
de
that I was
no
not
pensar
like a
obsesivamente
total
en
wreck all
esto
of the time.
era
And that game
pues realmente jugar
gave me
este
the ability to
juego,
control my
Dance Dance Revolution,
emotions
que
and
me dio un
control my
poco pues
attention.
la
And so,
posibilidad de
you know,
controlar
for
mis
any, like,
emociones,
especially for
mi
young people
atención,
today, there's so
etcétera.
much anxiety. Like,
Hoy
can we
en
find a
día,
game for a young
gente
person that
joven
will
se
help them
ve a
control
veces
their anxiety
tanta
and feel
ansiedad
in
que quizás
control of their
está
emotions
bien
and
pues
control of their
buscar un
thoughts
juego
so that
que
they
les
learn
permita
their
ayudar
whole
a
lives
controlar
to
sus
feel like,
emociones, sus
you know,
pensamientos, de manera que un
I
poco
can
estén más
choose
en
what to think about.
control de
I
su
can
vida,
choose,
de manera que
you
puedan
know,
decir,
what to
yo soy
feel.
capaz de
And
escoger en qué quiero
that
pensar,
lesson, if
cómo
learned
me
young,
quiero
can help them
sentir.
their whole lives. So,
Y creo
you
que
know, I think
esto, en
probably
un momento
everyone
de la
has a
juventud,
story
puede ser
about the
útil para
games that
toda
came in, the
nuestra
right
vida.
game at
Y
the
bueno,
right
la verdad
time.
es
And
que
maybe if
todo el
we could
mundo
tell
tiene su
more of
propia
those
historia sobre el
stories. I'm
juego
so glad
adecuado
you
que ha
asked that
venido en el
question and gave
momento y
me
ha
the
entrado en
chance
su
to
vida en el
reflect.
momento
If people could tell
adecuado,
those
¿no?
individual personal
Si
stories, we would
la
see
gente
that it's not
un
that
poco
some
pudiese
games are
contar sus
good and
historias
some games are
personales,
bad and some
veríamos o
games are
quizás
addicting and
dejaríamos de
some
ver este
games
juego es
are
bueno, este juego es
wholesome,
malo,
but
este
that we could
juego es
see
así o
that
asado.
we can help each
Y
other
podríamos,
find the right game that brings
deberíamos ver los
us
juegos
the
como,
emotional
o
benefit or the
pensar en
physical
cómo
benefit or the
podemos
social
ayudar a que cada
benefit,
persona busque el que le es
the
de más
mental,
ayuda
the
para
skill
ayudarles
training,
pues en lo
whatever
que
it
sea,
is, and
su
just
enfermedad,
get the
en
right
entrenar
game to
sus
the right
destrezas
person at the right
mentales
time.
o de
If
cualquier
we
otro
did more of
tipo. El
that, I
juego
think we would
adecuado para la persona adecuada
benefit all
en el
gamers
momento
and all game
preciso. Y creo que
developers too,
esto
to
es
be making
lo
something
que
that really helps people.
realmente es
So
de
thank you for that
beneficio. Yo
question.
como diseñadora de juegos creo que esto es realmente lo que busco. Así que bueno, muchas gracias por la pregunta.
Pues me encanta que digas eso, porque cuando a mí alguien me dice que no juega videojuegos, le digo que es porque aún no ha encontrado su juego, ¿no? El juego que sería adecuado para esa persona.
Yeah.
Y bueno, si no
Yeah.
tenemos más preguntas, pues Jane, ha sido un placer, un enorme placer charlar contigo este ratito. Creo que todas hemos aprendido mucho y bueno, que muchas gracias y que esperamos volver a reencontrarnos en otro momento y seguramente y esperemos que en mejores circunstancias.
Yeah, super better circumstances.
Sí, circunstancias super better.
Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias.